Hello students, a warm welcome to all of them. I hope you all are doing good and fine. In our today's session, we will be starting with the chapter number 11, National Insurance Contributions. Before moving forward to our today's session, first we will discuss what does the term National Insurance Contribution means. So students, we will take an example of an individual. He is a UK resident. He will earn money through employment or self-employment, and on his earning he needs to pay income tax. This we are clear. Now students, an individual will pay income tax on his earning. An individual also needs to pay a certain amount known as national insurance contribution on his earning. So when an individual pays his income tax, he needs to pay income tax liability, his income tax amount, and he also needs to pay the national insurance contribution on his earnings. Now, why will an individual pay the national insurance contribution? The national insurance contribution will be paid by an individual because students, this contribution will help the individual to qualify for certain benefits and qualify for pension schemes. And the pension scheme we have already covered in a different chapter, the whole types of pension schemes and etc. If an individual contributes to the national insurance contribution, he will qualify for certain benefits and pension scheme. And each individual, either is employed or self-employed, he needs to make the national insurance contribution along with his income tax liability. And this amount, students, the contribution, the national insurance contribution which is done by an individual, will be used by the government to meet the basic needs of unemployed person. So this amount, the national insurance contribution, will be used by the government for meeting the basic needs of unemployed persons, that is for the social welfare of the country. And if the government funds is in deficit, then government will use this amount. If government funds are in deficit, then government will use the NIC fund. Deficit means the overall income is low when compared to the expense of the country. So the national insurance contribution will be done by an individual, either he is employed or self-employed, based on his earnings. And this fund will be used by the government for the social welfare of the country. I hope this is clear. And students, this contribution is totally different from the income tax. The income tax amount we have seen already how we will calculate the income tax amount. But in our today's session, we will be seeing how to calculate the national insurance contribution amount. And it will be totally different. But it needs to be submitted or it needs to be paid to the HMRC when we pay our income tax liability. I hope this is clear. Now, in our today's session, under this chapter, we will be covering these two important topics. Explain and compute national insurance contributions payable. That is, these are the four types of national insurance contribution: class 1 and class 1A NIC, class 2 and class 4 NIC. The class 1A is for employed person and class 1 and 1A, and the class 2 and class 4 is for self-employed individual. Understand the annual employment allowance. So these are the two topics we will be covering under our today's session. Now moving forward, national insurance contribution will be payable by an employed person, self-employed person. So the contribution, the types of NIC which are payable by employed person will be class 1 employee NIC, that it will be paid by the employee, and the NIC which is payable by the employer for his employee will be class 1A and class 1 employers NIC. If an individual is self-employed, he will pay class 2 and class 4 NIC. So students, these are the 4 types of NIC which an individual needs to pay based on his engagement nature, that is employment or self-employment. I hope this is clear. Now moving to the classes of national insurance contributions. An amount of national insurance contributions a person pays and the payment of contribution depends on the class of contribution. So the payment will depend on the class of contribution. If employed, class 1 and class 1A. If self-employed, class 2 and class 4A. The main classes and persons who are liable are as follows: class of contribution, basis of assessment, person liable. Class of contribution. Class 1 employee, that it is paid by the employed person. So these 3 are for the employed person and these 2 are for self-employed person. So for employed person, the employee will contribute the class 1. A percentage based contribution levied on employee earning in excess of the employee limit for the tax year 23-24 of 12,570. We'll be covering in more detail. Above this limit, you need to contribute some amount. And the person liable will be here, the employee is paying for himself. The second type of is class 1 employers NIC. A percentage based contribution levied on employees' earnings in excess of the employer's limit for the tax year 23-24 of 9,100 pounds. And the person liable here will be employer. Class 1A, a percentage based contribution levied on taxable employment benefits provided to employees, and the person liable here is employer. So for employment, the NIC is class 1 which is paid by the employee and class 1 employer. So the class 1 will include the payment by employee also and employer also. And the second type of is class 1A, and this is paid on the employment benefit. We'll be covering in more detail, no issues. This is only for understanding what are the types or the classes of contribution and who is liable to pay the amount. Now coming to class 2 and class 4, a flat rate weekly contribution. The person liable here is the individual, self-employed individual. Class 4 NIC, a percentage based contribution levied on tax adjusted trading profits in excess of lower profit limits 12,570 pounds for the tax year 22-23. The person liable here is self-employed. I hope students, the types of contribution is clear. The types of classes of national insurance contribution are clear and the person liable to pay this amount. Now we will be covering in detail what will be the amount based on the earnings we need to pay. Now moving forward to NICs payable in respect of employees, that is if a person is employed. Class 1 employee and employers NIC. For employed person, we have seen class 1 and class 1A. Class 1 will be payable by the employee himself and his employer will also pay. But coming to class 1A, the employer will only pay. So for an employed person, we have 3 class of national insurance contribution. So first we will be covering class 1 employee and employers NIC. Both the class 1 contribution paid by the employee and the class 1 contribution paid by the employer are a percentage based contribution levied on the gross earning of the employee in excess of the earnings limit. So the contribution will be based on the gross earning of the employee in excess of the earnings limit. The earnings limit for the tax year 23-24 is 12,570 for employees and for employer it will be 9,100 pounds. So till this limit it will be 0 and above this limit we need to pay a contribution, and the NIC will be based on the gross earning. The class 1 employee NIC and employer NIC will be based on the gross earning of the employee in excess of the earnings limit. The earnings limit are 12,570 for employees and 9,100 pounds for employers. Now students, now we'll be covering what does the term gross earnings means. So basic understanding of gross earning means cash. Whatever the income the employee is receiving in cash will be known as gross earning. The cash benefit, the cash amount which an employee will receive. The definition of earnings for class 1 NIC purpose. Earnings for the purpose of class 1 NIC consist of two things. Any remuneration derived from the employment, that is employment income, which is paid in cash or assets which are readily convertible into cash. So students, the gross earning will include any remuneration derived from the employment, that is any remuneration which an employee receives when he is employed, but it must be paid in cash or assets which are readily convertible into cash. Either paid in cash or assets which are convertible into cash immediately. So these are the two things which will be included in the gross earnings. The NIC contribution for employees, we have seen the class 1 and class 1A. Class 1, both employee and employer will pay. But the class 1A will be paid by the employer, and students, the class 1A will be paid on the gross earning of the employee, and the gross earning includes cash paid and assets which are readily convertible into cash. Now we will look to the example of gross earnings. The calculation of class 1 NIC is based on gross earnings with no allowable deductions. Means we have seen a format, the employment format, incomes, then less allowable deduction. Here the gross earning will be without any allowable deduction. We need to take only the income amount. We will not deduct any expense. Gross earning with no allowable deduction. Earning before deduction that are allowable for income tax purposes, such as employee occupation pension scheme contribution and subscription to professional bodies. This we have covered under the employment income chapter. The format, the salary, cash benefit, bonus, etc. Then less allowable deduction we have seen. So before the allowable deduction we need to take the amount. Gross earning includes wages, salary, overtime pay, commission or bonuses, sick pay including statutory sick pay, tips, gratitude pay or allocated by the employer, reimbursement of the cost of travel between home and work, vouchers exchangeable for cash or non-cash items such as goods. So the gross earning include all the earnings which are paid in cash or assets which are readily convertible into cash. Example, wages, salary, sick pay, reimbursement of the cost of travel between home to work, and vouchers exchangeable for cash or non-cash items such as goods. Now we will be seeing gross earnings do not include exempt employment benefits. We have seen employer contribution into a pension scheme, mobile, etc. The car benefit, van benefit, fuel benefit, loan benefit, etc. These will not be included in the gross earning. Most taxable non-cash benefit except remuneration received in the form of financial instrument, readily convertible assets and non-cash vouchers, see above. Means if most taxable non-cash benefits, as whatever benefits we have received from the employer, but if it is readily convertible into cash, then it will be included in the gross earning. Tips directly received from customers will not be included in the gross earnings. Mileage allowance received from the employer provided it does not exceed the HMRC approved mileage allowance rate of 45 pence per mile. So students, as we have seen, the approved mileage allowance of 10,000 miles 45 pence and above 10,000 miles 25 pence. And but here students, for the gross earning, if we receive the amount for the fuel, it will be till 45 pence. And if any amount which we have received above 10,000 miles will be included in the gross earning. This you need to keep in, this point is very important, students. If the approved mileage allowance is being received by an employee above 10,000 miles, then the amount will be included in the NIC contribution, that is in the gross earning. The allowance does not decrease to 25 after 10,000 miles in the tax as it does for income tax. That is, here under the national insurance contribution above 10,000 miles, whatever you receive, students, that is 25 pence, you need to pay NIC on it. As a result, if an employer pays above approved mileage rates, the amount subject to income tax can be different from the amount subject to class 1 national insurance contribution. So under the income tax calculation, the approved mileage allowance we were doing it, students. If an employee is using his own car for the business purpose, the approved mileage allowance is less the amount which is paid by the employer, and if it is excess, it will be taxable. If it is in a minus figure, it would be deductible from the income. But when coming to the national insurance contribution, the amount about 10,000 miles will be subjected to NIC. I hope this is clear. Expenses paid for are reimbursed by the employer for which an income tax deduction would be available. Example, employment related travel and subsistence cost. So students, these are the incomes which are not included as gross income. Mostly it will be the benefits, non-cash benefits. But in the case of approved mileage allowance, you need to keep in mind the amount which is paid about 10,000 miles will be included in the national insurance contribution. Note that dividends are not subject to NICs even if they are paid to a director or shareholder in place of monthly salary. So dividend are not subject to NIC. So students, first we have seen that the class 1 NIC will be paid by the employee and employer, and it will be paid on the gross earning. Gross earning will include all amount which is paid in cash or assets which are readily convertible into cash. We have seen a lot of examples relating to cash item and the earnings which are not included as gross earnings. Now we will be seeing how do we calculate it. Relevant employees. Class 1 NIC are payable where the individual. So class 1 NIC will be payable where the individual is employed in UK and is age 16 or above over and has earning in excess of the earning limit, that is 12,570 for employees and 9,100 pound for the employees for the tax year 23-24. This limit, students, these limits will be changing as per each finance act. For this finance act, it is 12,570 and 9,100. So the NIC will be payable by an individual if he is employed in UK, his age is 16 or over, that is 16 or above, and earning in excess of the earning limit, that is 12,570 for employees and 9,100 pounds for employers. Class 1 employee contribution. Students, we have seen the class 1 contribution will be paid on gross earning. Then we have seen the conditions for the employee who need to pay the class 1 employee, that is employed in UK, age is 16 or above, and earning in excess of the earnings limit. Now coming to each contribution, the class 1 employee contribution and class 1 employer contribution. Class 1 employee contribution will be done by the employee. Class 1 employee contribution are also known as primary contributions and are payable by employees age 16 or above and will be paid by an individual if he is 16 or above till the state pension age. The state pension age is, students, 65. This, it will not be tested. You need to have a general understanding. the class 1 NIC will be payable by the employee and employer based on the employee's earnings. The employer will pay class 1 employee contribution, and it will be paid if an individual is age 16 or above, and it will be paid until the state pension age, that is 65. Now students, and the employee till when he will get retired, he will not pay. Till the time of doing the job, he will be paying it. Now coming to next slide. The employer is responsible for calculating the amount of class 1 employee NIC due and deducting the contribution from the employee's wages. So students, now we have started the class, the types of NIC, and we are looking into the general theory to understand who or are the employees eligible for this scheme. Not the scheme, the contribution. If an employee is above 16 or above, and he needs to pay until the state pension age. Now, the employer is responsible for calculating the amount of class 1 employee NIC due and deducting the contribution from the employee's wages. That is, the employer will calculate the income tax also, students, and he also needs to calculate the class 1 employee NIC and needs to pay to the HMRC. Note that class 1 employee NIC are not an allowable deduction for the purpose of calculating the individual employee's personal income tax liability. That means, students, when we calculate the employment income that will be taxable for an individual, the amount, the NIC, the class 1 NIC payable will not be an allowed expense. It will not be allowed expense. Not an allowable deduction for the purpose of calculating the individual employee's personal income tax liability. Do not represent a cost to the business of the employer, as they are ultimately paid by the employee. So it will not be the cost for the business, because the employee is paying from his wages. The employee is paying from his wages. The employer will calculate it and deduct from the employer wages and pay to the HMRC. Therefore, they are not a deductible expense when calculating the employer's tax adjusted trading profit. I hope this is also clear, students. Here, the employee is paying from his salary. Then how it will be a deductible expense for employer? It will not be. If employee pays, he can claim. Employee is paying, he can't claim. So students, if the NIC contribution is done by employee and employer. So for employee, we have seen under the employment income, and employee, the amount of NIC payable by the employee will not be a deductible expenses, disallowed. That is not deductible from the income. But when coming to employer will pay class 1 and class 1A NIC. So this for the employer, it will be an deductible expense, because the employer will be the company, and the employer will be the company, or either a small business if it is run by other person. So the business can claim the expense because it is for the business purpose and for the employee purpose. But if it is paid by the employee, it will not be an allowable deduction for the personal income tax liability under the employment income. And if the employee is paying, students, if the employee is paying, then the employer can't claim a tax the allowable deduction, because employee is paying and he is also paying. He can claim on his amount, but he can't claim on the amount which the employee is paying. I hope this is clear. Here the class 1 NIC is payable by two persons, employee also and employer. For employee, it will not be an allowable expense, but for employee, the employer also will pay. No, the employer's amount will be allowable deduction for his tax adjusted trading profits. Now moving to the calculation. Now from here it is important, student. Till now we have seen a general theory and the employees, what are the conditions needs to be met in order to pay this NIC. And we have seen that class 1 NIC will be payable on the gross earning. Now first we will be seeing the class 1 employee NIC, the NIC which is payable by the employee. As we know, students, the class, as we have known students, see the class, see we have already discussed that the class 1 NIC will be payable by the employee and employer both based on employees earning. So now first we'll be studying the class 1 NIC payable by employee, and the class 1 NIC will be payable on the gross earnings, students. Gross earnings, it will be payable on the gross earnings. I hope this is clear. And it will be payable on the gross earnings. Gross earning include cash paid or assets which are readily convertible to cash. So now first calculating class 1 employee NIC. As we have seen, students, the contribution will be based on the gross earning, which is more than the earnings limit, and the earning limit for employee was 12,570 pounds, same as our PA. We had personal allowance, students. Please do remember, we had a personal allowance deduction under our income tax calculation, and the earning limit is also your same. I hope this is clear. Now students, I'll be giving you a short from 0 to, if the gross earning is 12,570, the national insurance contribution will be 0. The national insurance contribution will be, students, it will be 0. And the contribution 12,571, if the earning is 12,571 till 50,270, the percentage paid will be 12%, students, and above 50,271 it will be paid at 2%. Now students, this will act as your bands. That is, if your gross earning is 50,000, 0 to 12,570, 0% NSC contribution. From 12,571 to 50,000 you need to pay at 12%, and above 50,275 at 2%. I hope this is clear, students. This is same as our income tax band. This is also an amount which we need to pay to the HMRC. So now employee contributions are normally calculated by reference to an employee's earning period. If paid weekly, the contributions are calculated on weekly basis. If the employee's salary or the cash benefits are paid on weekly basis, then the insurance contribution will be based on weekly basis. If paid monthly, the contributions are calculated on a monthly basis. In the examination, the class 1 NIC limits are always shown on an annual basis, and class 1 NIC calculation should therefore be performed on an annual basis unless you are clearly told otherwise. So students, the NIC calculation will be based on annual basis, but in a practical world, if we are paying the employee a weekly salary, then on week basis we need to calculate the NIC. If we are paying the salary on month basis, then we need to calculate the NIC on monthly basis. But this is for practical world. But when coming to our examination focus, the examination point is that the NIC limits which are provided will be on an annual basis, and the NIC also needs to be calculated on the annual basis. I hope this is clear. The employee contribution payable are as calculated: 12% on gross earning between 12,571 pounds and 50,270. That is, students, 0 till 12,570 will be at 0. No need to pay any NIC. But if the gross earning is between 12,571 to 50,270, it will be paid at 12%, and 2% on gross earning in excess of 50,270. 50,270. Above this, that is 50,275, it will be paid at 2%. I hope this is clear. The class 1 employee rates and limits are included in the tax rates and allowance provided to you in the examination. This will be provided in your examination, students. So I hope the class 1 employee contribution is clear. Students, first we have studied that the class 1 employee NIC, students, the class 1 employee NIC, the class 1 NIC will be payable by employee and employer also, based on the employer's gross earnings, employee gross. Then first we are now seeing employee class 1 NIC. What will be the rate, or on what percentage, what is the percentage based on his earning we need to pay? So the employee contribution for class 1 NIC will be, students, from 0, if the gross earning is 0 to 12,570, it will be 0%, no need to pay any NIC. But students, if the gross earning is between 12,571 to 50,270, it will be paid at 12%. This is same as your tax band. If the earning is 50,000, students, 0 to 12,570, 0. 12,571 to 50,000 will be paid at 12%. I hope this is clear. And if the gross earning exceeds 50,270, then it will be paid at 2%. And students, if an employee is paying, it will not be an deductible expense under our employment income. And we have not covered also, and we have not studied any point in our employment income that the contribution of NIC will be allowed. It is disallowed. This contribution which the employee is doing for the national insurance contribution will be disallowed expenditure. It will not be reduced from the income, and this will be paid by this will be paid by employer along with income tax liability. I hope this is clear. Along with income tax liability, the employer will also pay this amount to HMRC, and this amount will be deducted from the employee's wages and will be provided the net amount. But when calculating the income tax liability under the employment income, we need to consider the gross amount. Students, and it will be disallowed. I hope this is clear. Now students will be seeing a question so that we have a better understanding. Gross earning. L and A are employed by G Limited and both pay into the company's occupational pension scheme. Their remuneration for tax year 2023-24 is as follows. So salary for L is 30,000 and for A it is 50,000. Bonus is 0 for L and A it is 4,000. Car benefit is 0 and for A it is 3,950. Employer's pension contribution 2,300. 4,575. Employees pension contribution for L is 1,650 pounds and for A it is 3,800 pounds. Calculate L and A gross earning for class 1 NIC. So we need to calculate the gross earning. So student, the gross earning will include cash, all amount paid in cash, and assets readily convertible to cash. So here for L and A we need to calculate. So salary, it is paid in cash, so students it will be considered under this because it will be directly paid to the bank. It is cash benefit, but the gross earning will not include non-cash benefit. The gross earning will not include non-cash benefits. So the cash benefits are for L it is 30,000. So salary is for A 55,000. Bonus is also, students, cash item only. It will be paid immediately and 4,000. Car benefit, will it come, students? No, it will not come, students. Why? Because it is not in the form of cash. It is formed in the non-cash benefit. It is a non-cash benefit. Only the cash item will be included in the gross earning. The employer pension contribution, it will be 0. Employer pension contribution will be 0, 0 because it will not be cash benefit. Employee pension contribution, it will not be included, students. So the gross earning for L it will be 30,000 and for A it will be, students, 59,000. I hope the gross earning concept is clear. Now moving to the class 1 NIC. Now students, class 1 NIC, we will be seeing the class 1 NIC. So here only we will calculate the class 1 NIC, students. So the class 1 NIC, that is employee contribution. Only we have covered till now, we have only covered the employee contribution. So we will be covering first that. So your employee is L and A. Their employer is G Limited. So for L, so students, now we need to calculate the, so the bands were 0 to 12,570, 0%, 12,571 to 50,270, it will be paid at 12%, and 50,271 and above will be paid at 2%. Now students, let's take the example of L, and we have already seen the class 1 NIC will be payable at, for L and A, and class 1 employee NIC will be payable on gross earning, and for gross earning of L is 30,000. So students, from 0 to 12,570, it will be 0%. So 12,570 into 0, it will be 0. So 12,571 to 50,270 will be at 12%. So it will be, students, that is 12,571 to 30,000. So it will be, students, 12570 minus 30,000, it will be 17,430 into 12%. So into 12%, it will be 2,092. So the total class 1 employee NIC, it is employee NIC, students. We are not considering the employer, it is employee, 2,092. Now coming to A, it was 59,000. So from 0 to 12570, it will be 0%. So it will be 0. Then from 12,570 to 50,250, it will be 50,270 minus 12,570, 37,700. It will be at 12%, students. It is 4524, and above 50,270, it will be taxed at 2%. So 59,000 minus 50,270, it will be, students, 59,000, 50,270, 8,730 into 2%, it will be 175. So 54524 plus 175, it is 4,699. So I hope the class 1 employee NIC is clear. Now students, as we have already seen that the class 1 NIC will be payable by the employee on his gross earning, and employer will also contribute for his employee. Now we will be covering the case of employer. Class 1 employers NIC. Class 1 employers contribution, also known as secondary contribution. The class 1 employee contribution was known as, students, primary contribution. It was known as primary contribution. And as we have seen, the NIC will be payable is employed in UK, above 16 or above, and earning in excess of 12,570. As we have seen for employee, because from 0 to 12,570 it will be 0. So it is mentioned that the earnings limit must be more than 12,570. And students, we have seen that for the class 1 employee contribution, the this is primary contribution and it is payable by an employee age 16 or above, and it will be payable until attaining the state pension age. Now coming to employer, it is known as secondary contribution, are payable by employers in respect of the employee. So employer also pays on his behalf of his employees. As we have seen students, the same case applies to the pension contribution employee will also do and his employer will also do. Same here in NIC, employee will also pay the NIC, employer will also pay for his employee. That is age 16 or above until the employee ceases employment. So the employer will pay the class 1 NIC and if the employee is age 16 or above and until the employee ceased employment. Till if he is working under A employer, he will pay. After this, he shift his work to B employee, then the employee B will pay. So here students, I hope this is general theory. No need to learn this. Have a good understanding. There is no upper age limit for employer's contribution. The employer is liable for class 1 NIC even if the employee's age exceeds state pension age. As we have seen for the class 1 employee NIC, it will be payable if the employee is 16 or above and until the state pension age. But for the class 1 employer NIC, the employee must be 16 or above and until the employee ceases employment, and there is no upper age limit in case of employers NIC, that is state pension age, which is 65. Employers' contribution are an additional cost of employment and are a deductible expenses when calculating the employer's tax adjusted trading profit. So students, as we have already seen, if the employee is paying, it will not be an allowed expense, it will be disallowed expense, not allowable deduction. But if the employer pays for his employees, employer will not pay for himself, employer will pay for his employees, the employees. In that case, it will be an additional cost of employment and will be a deductible expense when calculating the employer's tax adjusted trading profit. The exemptions from class 1 employers NIC for employees under aged 21 and aged under 25 are not examinable. This is no need to concentrate on this. It will not be examinable, students. So the employees NIC for employees aged under 21 and 25, it will not be examinable. So no issue in this. This is only for your understanding. So now we will be seeing the calculation part of class 1 employers NIC. Employers' contributions are calculated by reference to employees' earning period. That is, and we have already seen this also in the class 1. The class 1 employee NIC will be based on the employee's earning period. It will be based on the employee's earning period. It will be based on the employee's earning period. If the employee is only working for 8 months, then we need to calculate the earnings for 8 months only. How? We need to apportion the limit, students. One key point here to remember is that, students, for class 1A NIC, if the period of employee's earning period is less than 12 months, then the limits, that is 0 to 12,570, needs to be apportioned. If an employee is working for 8 months, so then the 12,570 into 8 divided by 12. As this limit is for whole 12 months, the same 5,270 also you need to apportion it. I hope this is clear. Under the class 1 NIC, and for each case we will be looking whether we need to apportion or not. Employees' contribution are calculated by reference to an employee's earning period. In the examination, class 1 NIC calculation should be performed on an annual basis unless you are clearly told otherwise, that either if it is mentioned that 8 months or 10 months is the period of employment, If not mentioned, you need to calculate for annual basis. Employer's contribution are calculated as 13.8% on gross earning above 9,100 pounds. Note that there is no upper earning limit, no change in the rate of NIC payable for employer's contribution. So students, here now coming to the case of employer. Now, as we have covered for employee, now we will be covering for the employer. And employer will be paying students to NIC. Class 1 employer and contribution, class 1A employer contributions. So now students, for class 1 employer contribution, this is on the gross earning, and it is on the gross earning means cash paid or readily convertible into cash. So from 0 to 9,100 pounds it is 0, and 9,000 above 9,100 at 13.8%. So the employee will also pay, and the employer will also pay on his, for his employees, on behalf of his employee. The employer will also pay, and but for the employer it will be students allowable deduction. It will be allowable deduction. I hope this is clear. It will be an allowable deduction. So now this is also a general theory, students will be covering it now, so that then we have a topic of class 1A NIC. First, the payment of class 1 contributions. Before moving, we'll solve one question. Afterwards, we'll come to this topic. So that now students, we need to calculate the class 1 NICs. Question: M is employed by B Limited. Okay, M is employed by B Limited and is paid an annual salary of 49,000 pounds. M is also provided with following taxable benefits: company car of 5,000 pounds, vouchers for local gyms 2,000 pounds. Calculate M and B Limited class 1 NIC liability due for the tax year 23-24. So now students, we need to calculate the liability. So as we have seen, the class 1 NIC will be payable by two of them: employee contribution and the employer's contribution on behalf of his employee. So for the employee, the limits are 0 to 12,570, 0%, 12,571 to 50,270 paid at 12%, and students 50,271 and above at 2%. Now coming to employers, 0 to 9,100, 0%, 9,101 and above 13.8%, and this will be paid on these students gross earnings. I hope this is. Now we need to calculate the NIC for both employee and employer. So M here is employee and B Limited here is employer. So now first we'll calculate the gross earning. The gross earning is, students, here salary will be included. Okay, the gross earning will be salary of 49,000, students, and company car, it will be non-cash benefit, it will not be included. Vouchers for the local gym of 2,000 pounds, it will be included, students. Please do see here, we have already seen the gross earning vouchers exchangeable for cash or non-cash items, and the vouchers means both cash and non-cash items such as goods. So here, students, we have already seen it is for non-cash items, so it will be included. So vouchers will be included. So 51,000 will be your gross earning. On this gross earning, will be paying income tax also and NIC. So M, employee contribution, will be students 0 to 12,570. So 0, it will be 0. Then 50,270. So it will be students 12,570 minus 50,270. This will be 37,700 at 12 percentage. So this will be students 37,700 into 12 percentage, 4,524, and above 5,270 it is 52,000. My 52 or 51? 51 students. 51, sorry. 50,000 minus 50,270. So the excess amount will be students 730. And on this 730, we need to pay 2%, and this 2% will be 7.3 plus 7.3, it will be 14.6, so it will be 15. So the total will be students 4,539. Now coming to employer. So employer, that is 0 to 9,100 at 0. Above 9,000, so 51,000 minus 9,100, it will be, the difference will be students. So the difference amount 51,000 minus 41,900, 41,900 into 13.8 students, 13.8%. So it will be 5,782. I hope by solving this question we are clear with the class 1 NIC. We have completed the first NIC, the class 1 NIC. It is for the employed person, and class 1 NIC will be payable by the employee and employer based on the gross earning. Now students will be looking to the class 1A NIC. Before that, we will do a short theory. Payment of class 1 contribution. So students, as we have seen, it will be payable along with the income tax liability. So the employer will pay the income tax liability of the employee under the payee system. If, then along with that it will pay this also. If not, we will be seeing how this will be managed. The administration and payment of class 1 NIC is carried out by the employer as follows. As we have seen in our income tax calculation, students, the income tax on the employment income will be paid by the employer. The employer is responsible for calculating the amount of class 1 employee and employer's contribution at each pay date. That means the employer is responsible to calculate the employee's contribution as well as the employee's contribution at each pay date. Employee contribution are deducted from the employee's wage or salary by the employer and paid to HMRC on the employee's behalf. That is, the employee contribution are deducted from the employee's wages and or salary by the employer, and it will be paid to the HMRC. The employer will calculate the amount, both amount, employee contribution, employer contribution, and the employee contribution will be deducted from the employee's wages or salary and will be paid to the HMRC. The total employee and employer's contribution are payable by the employer to HMRC along with income tax deducted from the employees under pay. That means income tax will also be paid and NIC will also be paid under the pay. Now coming to the due date of the payment. The payment is due on the 19th of each month. That is due not later than 14 days after the end of each pay month. So students, you need to keep a basic, the due date will be 22nd of each month. However, most businesses pay electronically and are allowed an extra 3 days to pay. Therefore, the payment is normally due on 22nd of each month. The electronic pay day should be used in the examination. So, the due date will be, students, 22nd of each month. It will be each month. I hope this is clear. The due date is 22nd of each month. I hope this is clear, students. The payment is due on 19th of each month, that is each tax month. So our tax year will start from 6th April to 5th April, students. So first tax month will be 6th April to 5th May. So this month it will be 22nd of May. I hope this is clear. The salary for April month, it will be from the April month, the due date, the payment date will be 22nd of May, following the next month, because it will be as per the tax month. This you need not keep in mind, only you need to keep in mind that is 22nd of each month, end of each pay month. The pay month is 6th April to 5th April. So the pay month is this, students. So not later than 14th. If you do 5 plus 4, it is 19 days. So 19th of each month, that is 15 plus 14 days, due not later than 14 days. So plus 14, it will be 19. So the payment is due on the 19th of each month. But if we are paying electronically, 3 days extra provided. So 22nd March of each month. This you only need to keep in mind. This no need. So the payment due date is 22nd of each month, because the employer will detect the employee's NIC and employer's NIC and will need to pay to the HMRC along with the income tax liability. The special payment rules for very small employers and those not paying electronically are covered in detail in chapter number 12. We'll be covering under the next chapter. So I hope this general theory is clear, that the employer is responsible for calculating the class 1 employee and employer NIC, and the employee's contribution will be paid to HMRC by deducting from the employee's wages, and the due date is 22nd of each month. I hope this is clear, students. Now moving to these, now we have other one topic known as NIC employment allowance. Employers are able to claim up to 5,000 relief per annum from their class 1 employers NIC payments. So students, an employment allowance is provided to an employer, that is 5,000 per annum. So what does this allowance mean, students? As we have seen, like a personal allowance, no need to pay tax. So here also, students, if the employer contribution to class 1 NIC can claim, students, can claim employment allowance, that is 5,000 pound per annum. If the total employer contribution to class 1 NIC is less than 5,000 pounds, then no need to pay to HMRC. So this is the meaning of employment allowance. If the employer's contribution to class 1 NIC for all the employee students, this is for all employees in the organization, So for all the employees, if the employee's contribution is less than 5,000 or 5,000, then he can claim employment allowance. He will not pay to the HMRC. But if it exceeds, if the employer contribution is 20,000 pound, so the employer can claim 5,000 allowance and need to pay 15,000 to HMRC. I hope this is clear. This is the meaning of employment allowance. Employers are able to claim up to 5,000 pound relief per annum from their class 1 employer NIC payment, that is from their employers. So the employer payment will be 10,000, so they can claim an employment allowance of 5,000 and need to pay the rest amount. Note that the allowance cannot be used against any other case of NIC. Only it is for class 1 NIC. It is not for the class 1A. Please students, do not confuse between the class 1 and 1A. Class 1 NIC is only having the employment allowance. Is claimed through the real-time information, that is pay system. It will be claimed under the pay system. Is not available to companies where a director is the sole employee paid over the earnings limit of £9,100. So students, this employment allowance will not be provided if there is a company and where the director is the sole employee. He is only the individual employee. He is the only one person, only one employee. Then this employment allowance will not be provided. Is only available to employers with total class 1, not 1, class 1 employees contribution is less than £100,000 in the previous tax years. So students, this employment contribution will reduce the employer's contribution of the NIC, but this will not be available in two cases. That is, if where the director is the sole employee of the company and his earnings are above 9,100, because 0 till 9,000 no NIC, so earning must be more than 9,000 and he must be the only employee in the company. And the second is that the employer's contribution for all the employees of his organization in previous tax year should not be more than £100,000. That is, if previous year the employer's NIC contribution, that is class 1 NIC student, class 1 NIC, if previous year it was for all the employees, it was 102,000, that is 102,000. If this amount is paid, if this amount of NIC was paid by the employer, that is class 1 NIC, then this employment allowance will not be available for the employer for the next year. I hope this is clear. Information regarding to prior year class 1 employer NIC will be provided in the examination question where required. If it is provided, then you need not claim the employment allowance. The 5,000 allowance is included in the tax rate and allowance provided to you in the examination. This will be provided. So students, we have discussed one more point regarding the employment allowance of £5,000. That is students, it will not, this employment allowance will not be available, not available if previous year employer class 1 NIC is more than £100,000. All employees. I hope this is clear. Second point was the second point, the director, sole employee of the company. If sole employee of the company. I hope this is clear. So students, the employment allowance will not be available if the individual is the sole employee of the company. Sole employee of the company. And students, please do remember, the class 1 NIC employee, this will be payable by the employee. Then employer will pay class 1 employer contribution, that is class 1, and this is for each individual. This is the limit, student. Do not confuse that total all the employees are there. 10 employees are there. Okay, 10 employees gross earning. No. As we have studied, the employee's contribution will be on the employee's gross earning, and this limit is for each employee, that is on employee's gross earning. Then we have seen the it is allowable. Then we have seen the employment allowance. Now coming to the class 1A NIC. So students, please do keep in mind that the class 1 employer NIC is secondary and it is payable on an employee's earning period and on the gross earning. Employee's gross earning, not total employees. Each individual employee's gross earning. Now coming to class 1A NIC. Employers are required to pay class 1 NIC on taxable benefits provided to employees. So employer are required to pay class 1 NIC on the taxable benefit, only on the taxable benefit, only on the taxable benefit it will be payable. No class 1 NIC are payable in respect of exempt benefit, because exempt benefit will not be taxable. That is those benefits which are exempt from income tax. We have seen in a chapter number 5, gifting of one mobile phone, some canteen meals, etc. Benefits already treated as earning and subjected to class 1 NIC, such as remuneration received in the form of non-cash vouchers. That is vouchers, whether cash or non-cash, it will not come under the class 1A NIC, it will be covering under the class 1 NIC. Contributions are calculated, the contribution are calculated as 13.8% on the value of the taxable benefit. So here students, it is a flat rate of 13.8% on the taxable benefit. Exempt benefit, it will not be included. Benefits which are already treated under class 1A and class 1 NIC, it will not be included. Class 1A NIC are an additional cost of an employment and are deductible expenses when calculating the employer's tax adjusted trading profits. So students, the class 1A will be deductible, will be allowed expense when we calculate the employer's tax adjusted trading profit. Payment of class 1A NIC. Class 1A NIC are payable to HMRC by 19th July following the end of the tax year, that is 19th July 2024 for the tax year 23-24. So the class 1A NIC will be payable 19th July 2024 after the end of the tax year. However, most business pay electronic and therefore pay by 3 days extra, 22nd July following the end of the tax year. The electronic pay day should be used in the examination. So for class 1 NIC it is students 22nd of each month. But coming to class 1A NIC, it will be payable on 19th July if it is paperless, but if it is electronic, we need to pay 22nd July. I hope this is clear. Now students, we will be doing relating a question to class 1A NIC. But before that, we will be making our short notes, that is students. Now the class 1 Now the class 1A employer NIC contribution, and students, this payable on non-cash benefits, that is taxable benefit, students. It will be payable on the taxable benefits. I hope this is clear. So it will be payable on the taxable benefits. It will be payable on the taxable benefit, and the rate is students 13.8 flat rate. It will be 13 point flat rate. And students, we have already discussed that when we calculate the class 1 NIC, we need to time apportion. Please do keep in mind this word, time apportion. This is very important. If the employee is working for 8 months, then only 8 months. Then you need to time apportion the limits. These limits you need to time apportion. But when coming to the case of class 1A NIC, no need to time apportion. For this also time apportion. Please do keep in mind, students, if employee is only doing the employment for 8 months, then this limit needs to be time apportioned. But class 1A NIC, no need, no time apportioned, because if the employee is only for 8 months, then we'll calculate the taxable benefit for 8 months, no need to apportion it. So now students, we'll be doing a question so that we have a better understanding. Class 1 NIC. S is employed by D Limited at an annual salary of £53,000. They were provided with a company car throughout the tax year 2023-24. So for throughout the tax and no issues. That had a list price of 15,000. The car has a CO2 emission of 128 gram per kilometer. Petrol for both business and private mileage is provided by D Limited. Petrol for both, so it is provided by D Limited, no issues. So the petrol for both business and private is provided by D Limited. It is provided by company. Please do keep in mind. Calculate the employees and employers class 1 and class 1A NIC liability due for the tax year 23-24 in respect of S. Ignore the employment allowance. We need to ignore the employment allowance. So students, we need to calculate the class 1 NIC and class 1A NIC. One NIC, both employee contribution and employer contribution. So students, first we need to calculate the gross earning here. So students, here the gross earning salary will be included in the gross earning, that is 53,000. Then other benefits, okay, the other benefit is car. So car will be non-cash benefit, but it will be taxable. So car benefit. First we'll calculate this, students. So employees, for employers, so the total gross earning is 53,000. So 0 to 12,570, it will be at 0%, students. So 0, 12,571 to 50,270 will be at 12%, that is 37,700 into 12%, it will be 4,540, 524, sorry students, 24 it is. Then above 50,271 and above, it will be at 2%. So it will be, students, here 53,000 minus 50,270. So the excess amount will be 53,000 minus 5,270. 53,000 minus 50,270, 27,330 into 2%. It will be, students, 55. So the total employees contribution will be, so the class 1 NIC of employee will be 4,524 plus 55, 4,580. Now students, coming to employer contribution. So employer contribution gross earning will be the same. So 0 to 9,100, it will be at 0%, students. It will be at 0%, and 9,000, above 9,100, it will be at 13.8%, students. It will be at 13.8%. So it will be 0 to 9,100, 0, and 53,000 minus 9,100, it will be, students, 43,900 into 13.8%, 6,058. Now coming to class 1A NIC, and the class 1A NIC will be payable by, students, the employer. In our case, it is delimited. Now, we need to first calculate the car benefit, students. Now, car benefit, how will be calculating, students? Based on our employment rules. Based on our employment rules. Based on our employment rules. So, car benefit. So, students, first we'll calculate the car benefit. I hope all of you remember the formula. Car benefit will be list price into appropriate percentage into appropriate CO2 percentage. Now, already in the question they have mentioned the list price. It is 15,000, students. 15,000. And we need to find the percentage. I hope here. So it is a petrol car, student. So for petrol car, please do remember the emissions rate. It will be provided in the examination, no issues. So it will be, the percentage will be, students, as we have already seen in our class, it will be 14 and 15 percentage. So if the CO2 emission is 1 to 54 grams, it will be 14 percentage, and 55 grams, it will be 15 percentage for petrol and diesel cars meeting RDE2 standards. But diesel car not meeting RDE2 standards, we need to increase it by 4 plus 4. So students, now we will calculate the, and if it is excess of 55 gram per kilometer, for each 5 gram 1 percentage will increase. 1 percentage will increase, students. It will increase. So the CO2 emission from 1 to 54, it was 1 to 54. So students, 1 to 54, it was 15 percentage, and 55 it was 16 percentage, and for diesel cars, and it was increased by 4 percentage, increased by 4. So 51 to 54, it was 15 percentage, and 55 it was 16 percentage for petrol and diesel cars meeting. Diesel cars not meeting RDE2 standard diesel car, it was plus 419, and here it was 20 percentage. And for above 55, 1 percentage for each 5 gram. So students, the CO2 emission here is 128, and we need to round down to nearest 0 or 5. So we will round out it to 125. So 16 percentage plus 125 minus 55 divided by 5, it will be 125 minus 55 divided by 5, 14 percentage. So this will be, students, 30 percentage. So into 30 percentage, and it was provided for throughout the year. So the benefit will be, students, 15,000 into 30, 4,500 will be the benefit. And this is the car benefit, student. And they have also mentioned that the both petrol for both business and private mileage is provided by delimited. So the benefit will be fuel benefit, students. It will be fuel benefit. Fuel benefit. And we had a fixed amount, students. We had a fixed amount on which we were calculating this amount. So the amount was, students, So the fuel benefit will be calculated on the fixed amount, and the fixed amount $27,800. Let me check it, students, once. The fuel benefit 27,800. 27,800 into the CO2 emission 30%. So this will be, students, 27,800 into 30%, 8,340. So our total income, our total non-taxable benefit income will be, students, 4,500 plus 8,340. It will be 8,340. So it will be 8,340 plus 4,500, 12,840. It will be 12,840. This is our taxable benefit. It will be taxable benefit. Yeah. On this flat rate of 13.8%. So this will be, students, 1,772. Class 1A NIC. I hope by solving this question we are clear with the employed person. Class 1 NIC, class 1A NIC, which is payable on the taxable benefit. So students, the ranges from 51 to 54 it is 15%, and for 55 grams it is 16%, and for diesel cars not meeting the RD2 standard it was 19% and 20% plus 4, and the maximum we can claim is 37%. I hope this is clear. Now we will be seeing the NICs. This is so student, this is a flow chart for the summary. This is a summary for the NIC. As we have seen, paid by employer, class 1 NIC, gross earning, no allowable deduction, includes vouchers, payable if age 16 till pension age. So above 12,570 to 50,000 it will be paid 12%, and 50,000 to 72%. Due date is 22nd month or 22nd of each month, and paid by employer is class 1 employer NIC, gross cash earning, non allowable deduction, includes vouchers, payable when age 16 or over, rate 13.8% on earnings and above, that is 0 to 9,100, 9,100 above, 13.8%. Due date 22nd of each month, employment allowance of 5,000. Class 1 NIC, taxable benefits excludes exempt benefits and vouchers, age 16 or above, 13% on value of the taxable benefit. Due date is 22nd July after the end of the tax year. And these two will be allowable expenditure for employer. It will be for the employer, not for the employee. It will be for the employer. Please do keep in mind, students. Now coming to the class 2 and class 4 NIC for self-employed individual. NIC payable in respect of self-employed individuals. Class 2 NIC. Class 2 NIC are payable where the individual is 16 or above until attaining state pension age, if the tax adjusted trading profit of the business for the tax year exceeds the lower limit of 12,570. So students, as we have already seen, the NIC for self-employed individuals. So the individual will pay two types of NIC. So it will be class 2 NIC, class 2 and class 4 NIC. Class 2 and class 4 NIC. Now students, we are studying the class 2. The class 2 NIC will be payable if an individual is 16 or above until attaining the state pension age, that is 65, and the tax adjusted trading profit of the business for the tax year exceeds 12,570. The amount payable is class 2 contribution are a flat rate payment of 3.45 per week. The maximum total class 2 NIC payable for the tax year 23-24 is therefore 3.45 into 22 52 weeks, 52 weeks. It will be 179 pounds, and this we need to apportion as per the weeks. The business is only, if an individual is doing the business for 10 weeks, then only for 10 weeks we need to calculate this amount. I hope this is clear, students. Here the class 2 NIC is very simple. It is 3.45 pounds per week, and in a year we have 52 weeks. Note that class 2 contributions are not an allowable deduction for the purpose of calculating the individual's income tax liability and are not deductible expense when calculating business tax adjusted trading profit. So if I am individual and I need to pay the class 2 and class 4 NIC, it will not be an allowable expense. It will be disallowed. It will be disallowed, as we have covered under the chapter number 7, income from self-employment. If an individual is paying his class 2 and class 4 NIC, it will be disallowed. It will not be allowed. The rate of class 2 NIC and lower profit limits are included in the tax rate and allowance provided to you in the examination. This and this limit will be included. So students, we have seen that the class 2 NIC will be payable at a flat rate of 3.45 per week, and 1 year is equal to 52 weeks. And students, the second important point is that the tax adjusted trading profits, the tax adjusted trading profits for the tax year must be 12,570 pounds more. It must be 12,570 pounds and more. They limit the lower profit, that is, if the tax adjusted trading profits are more than 12,570, then the class 2 NIC will be payable. The class 2 NIC will be payable, students. And above, I hope this is clear. If the tax adjusted trading profit is less than 12,570, then the class 2 NIC will not be payable. So we will be seeing a question. So we need to see both, students, then only we can solve the question. Now coming to payment of class 2 contributions. Class 2 NIC are collected by HMRC through self-assessment system, that is when we pay our income tax liability under the self-assessment. Payment is due by 31st July following the end of the tax year, along with the balancing payment for income tax and class 4 NIC. So the income tax and class 4 NIC will be payable together. The detailed administration and payment rules are covered in the chapter number 12, our next chapter. HMRC can collect unpaid class 2 NIC from individuals if they are also employed by adjusting their PA tax code. Will be covering in our chapter number 2. So the class 2 NIC are collected by HMRC through self-assessment system. The payment is due by 31st Jan following the end of the tax year, along with the balancing payments for the income tax and class 4 NIC. We will be covering in more detail in our next chapter, students. No issues in this. So the payment is, the due date is 31st Jan following the end of the year, that is, we'll be covering in our next chapter. No issues in this. Now students, we will be seeing the class 4 contribution. We will be seeing the class 4 contribution. In addition to class 2 NIC, a self-employed individual may also be liable to class 4 NIC. Class 4 contributions are payable by self-employment individual who at the start of the tax year are age 16 or above, they continue to pay until the end of the tax year in which they reach state pension age. That is, at the start of the tax year, the individual is 16 or above, and until he reaches the state pension age, he will be paying this amount. The class 4 NIC are a percentage based on the contribution levied on the profits of the individual in excess of 12,570 for the tax year 23-24. Note that class 4 contributions are not an allowable deduction for the purpose of calculating the individual income tax liability, are not a deductible expense when calculating the business tax adjusted trading profit. I hope this is clear. So it will not be the class 2 and class 4 will not be an deductible expenditure and are not an allowable deduction for the purpose of calculating the individual income tax liability. I hope this is clear, students. It will not be deducted from our income tax under the trading income, so that our trading income will fall down. If we deduct it, it will fall down. So low income tax, but it is disallowed, are not an allowable deduction for the purpose of calculating the individual's income tax liability. So this is disallowed. The definition of profits. Profits for the purpose of class 4 NIC consists of tax adjusted trading profit of the individuals that are subjected to income tax after deducting trading losses, if any. So students, profit here means tax adjusted trading profit. We have seen in our chapter number 7, and which are subject to deducting trading loss. After deducting the trading loss, whatever is the profit on that trading profit, we need to calculate the class 4 NIC. This definition of profit also applies for class 2 NIC purpose. Note that profits for class 2 and class 4 NIC are before deducting the individual's personal allowance that is available for income tax purpose. That is, the trading income for NIC, the trading income will be after the deduction of the loss but before deduction of the personal allowance. If the individual has more than one business, the aggregate of all profits from all self-employed occupation are used to calculate the class 4 NIC liability. Means if 2 or more business, combine the profit and calculate the class 4 NIC. Now coming to calculating the class 4 NIC. Contribution payable are calculated as 9% on profit between 12,571 to 50,270. 2% of profit in excess of 50,270. The rates and limits for class 4 and NIC are included in the tax rates and allowance provided to you in the examination. So the class 4 NIC will be payable, students, 0 to 12,570, 0. This must be the tax adjusted trading profit after subject to deduction of the trading loss. 12,571 to 50,270 will be paid at 9%, and 50,271 and above will be paid at 2%. So I hope this is clear, students. As we have seen, the class 4 NIC students will be payable on the profits. Profits are tax adjusted trading profits, for the tax year after considering the trading loss also. And the same applies to here. The same rule applies here also. For both the profits are, students, profits based on profits, and this profit is this one, the tax adjusted trading profit. I hope this is clear. Now the rules, the limits: 0 to 12,570 as 0, 12,571 to 50,270 it is at 9%, and 50,271 and above 2%. So students, now we need to do a sum so that we have better understanding. Class 2 and class 4 NIC. J has been trading as a self-employed painter and decorator since 2002. His tax adjusted trading profit for the tax year are £62,000 and he has a trading loss brought forward of £10,000. His wife P is a part-time mobile hairdresser. Her tax adjusted trading profit for the tax year 23-24 is 13,560. Calculate the class 4 NIC payable by J and P for the tax year 23-24. We'll calculate both students, class 4 also and class 2 also. So that we have. So class 2, as we know, it is fixed 3.45. So this is for J and this is for P. So he is self-employed throughout the year. So this will be students 2 into 52 and for 179. Here also 3.45 into 52 weeks. This will be 179. So this is class 2 NIC. Now coming to the most important class 4 NIC. And the class 4 NIC will be calculated on the profit, students. Profits will be tax adjusted trading profit, which takes into account the trading loss. Trading loss. This is very important, students. This point is very important. Takes into account the trading loss. Now, as we have seen, the tax adjusted trading profit is 62,000. Brought forward less loss relief, brought forward loss, and this brought forward loss will be directly deducted from the trading profit, because carry forward relief, if the loss is carry forward, we can only deduct from the trading profit. So 10,000 deducted. So the profits will be 52,000. Taxable trading profit. So on this we need to calculate the NIC, that will be the class 4 NIC. So students, 0 to 12,570 will be 0. 12,571 to 50,270 at 9%. Do not confuse with the employer and self-employed student. There it was 12%. Here it is 9%. So 37,700 into 9%, 3393. Then 52,000 minus 50,270. This at 2%. So the excess amount will be, students, 52,000 minus 50,270, 1,730 into 2%. It will be 35. So the total will be 3393 plus 35, 3,428 for J. Now coming to P. P made the tax adjusted profit of 13,560, students. So we need to calculate the profits are 13,560 and no, there is no loss. So 0 to 12,570 will be at 0%. 13,560 minus 12,570, it will be at 9%. So the difference will be, students, 13,560 minus 12,570, 990 into 9%. So it will be 990 into 980, 89. I hope this is clear. By solving this question, we are good to go with the class 2 and class 4 NIC for self-employed individual. Here, students. So the class 2 NIC and class 4 NIC are paid by a self-employed individual. Class 2 payable age 16 and until he reaches the state pension age. Rate, it is fixed rate of 3.45 per week. If the business is only run for 52 or 30 weeks, we need to calculate as per the number of weeks. Due date, payable on 31st Jan following the end of the tax year under self-assessment rule. So students, this is will be covering in the next chapter. No issue this, no issue under this rule. That is 31st Jan following the end of the tax year. Following the end of the tax year. Then students, coming to payable on tax adjusted trading profit after trading loss, it will be payable on the tax adjusted trading profit after considering the trading loss, payable when age 16, state pension age at the start of the tax year. At the start of the tax year, either 16 or above, and will be paid till state pension age. Rate 9% on profits between 12,571 and 50,270, and above that 270 50,271 and above, it will be paid at 2%. Due date is payable with income tax due under self assessment. It will be payable under the self assessment system, students. I hope this is clear, the summary of this. So the due date 31st Jan following the end of the tax year. That is 31st Jan of that tax year, not the tax year. The next tax year, students. Now students, coming to the next slide, payment of class 4 contribution. Class 4 contribution are paid to HMRC at the same time as individual pay income tax. Income tax and class 4 NIC due are collected by HMRC through self-assessment. For class 4 self-assessment, but the due date was 31st Jan following the end of the tax year. The detailed administration and payment rules are covered in chapter 12. Will be covering in more detail in our next chapter. Then students, we have the next topic of total NIC payable by self-employed individual. A self-employed individual pays class 2 and class 4 NIC in respect of their trading profits. In addition, if self-employed individuals employ staff, they will also be required to account for. If a person is self-employed and in his business he has employed staffs, then he also need to account for class 1 employee NIC, class 1 employer NIC and class 1 A NIC in respect of the earnings and benefits provided to the employees. If I am self-employed, I will pay my NIC class 1, class 2, and in my company I have employed persons, then I need to account for class 1, class 1A NIC. An examination question scenario focusing on a sole trader could therefore involve consideration for all of these class of NIC. Now we'll be doing a question of this topic so that we have better understanding. Question: D has been a self-employed computer consultant for many years. Her tax adjusted trading profits for the tax year 23-24 are, so D is self-employed computer consultant. The tax adjusted trading profit are, students, 52,500. D has employed 1 year employee. So D has employed 1 employee for many years. So 1 employee is also there, student, in the company. In his tax adjusted trading profit, 1 employee is also there. A full-time personal assistant at a salary of 38,300 per annum. She also provides, that is D also provides the assistant with a diesel engine company car which has a list price of 13,000, CO2 emission of 109, that is it will meets the RDE2 standard. D pays for the assistant's private and business fuel. Okay. D class 1 employer's liability was, D class 1 employer's liability was 3,680 in the previous tax year. Calculate the total NIC and D must account for HMRC in respect of the tax year 23-24. So students, here D is self-employed. He need to pay his class 2, class 4, and D has employed 1 employee, his personal assistant, and paying salary. So we need to account for class 1 and class 1A NIC also, because we are providing taxable benefit here, students. Now students, first we will be covering for D. First we will be covering for D. D is self-employed. Directly they have given the tax adjusted trading profit. So it is D will pay students 2 NIC, class 2 and class 4, because he is self-employed. So class 2 it is 3.45 into 52 weeks. So it is 179, and class 4 it will be based on tax adjusted trading profit 0 to 12,570, it will be at 0. So 0. Then the tax adjusted profit is 52,500. So 12,570 to 571 students. 50,270 will be paid at 9%. 50,271 and above will be paid at 2%. So this will be students 37,700 into 9%. This will be 37,700 93 and 50,000. So it is 50,000, 52,500. So 52,500 less 50,270, 52,000, 52,500, 50,270, 2,030 into 2%. This will be 445. So this will be 3438. As we have seen students that D is self-employed, so he'll pay class 2 employee, but they mentioned here to calculate the total NICs, the total NIC. So as D has employed one employee, we need to consider the employer's contribution. So employers class 1 contribution and employers class 1A contribution, because the class 1 is paid by the employee and employer, class 1A only the employer pays. So students, so now the class 1 will be paid at gross earning of employee, class 1A taxable benefit. And students, please do remember we had employment allowance, and employment allowance is only available for class 1 NIC. Now we will be calculating employers contribution to class 1 NIC. Now gross earning, as they have mentioned, the salary is students 38,300, and the other benefit was, it was a car and private fuel. It will come under the taxable. So salary, this is our gross earning 0 to 12,000. No students, this is for the employee. This limit is for the employee. Please do not confuse. For the employer it is 9,100 at 0%. More than 9,101 and above, it is at 13.8%. So 38,300 minus 9,100, this will be the difference of students 29,200 into 13.8%. So it will be 4,030. So this is students employer class 1 NIC. Now students, it is 4,030. Now less employment allowance, we can claim only one. The employment allowance will not be available if the self-employed person is only one employee in the company. Here we have two, the self-employed person and the employee. And the second case was the student, previous year employer's NIC should not be more than 100,000 pound, but it is less than 100,000 pound. So the employment allowance will be available. So the employment allowance will be available, students. The employment allowance will be available. So it is, so employer contribution to class 1 NIC contribution will be 0, because the employer can claim employment allowance for class 1 NIC. Only employer can claim, and it will not be claimed for class 1A NIC. Now we need to calculate employer class 1A NIC, and it is payable on the taxable benefit, students. So as we are provided with a diesel car, so it will include a car benefit, and fuel is provided, so fuel benefit will be included. First we need to calculate the car benefit. So the car benefit will be, students, list price into appropriate CO2 percentage. The list price they have already mentioned as 13,500. Please do see here, students, in the question is 13,500 and 109, and it meets RDE2 standard. Diesel car which meets RDE2 standard will be treated as the same as petrol car. It will be treated as the petrol car. So into appropriate percentage, the CO2 emission was, students, 109. The petrol car, it is 51 to 54 and 55 grams. It is 15% and 16%. I hope this is clear to you. It will be provided in your sheet. And for now, CO2 emission of 105. Now, student, the CO2 is, it is meeting the RDE2 standard same as petrol. So 16% plus 10. We need to round down the CO2 emission near to 5 or 0, or we can round down the percentage. Here we'll round down the percentage. 109 minus 55 divided by 5. So 109 minus 55 divided by 5, it is 10.8%. So it will be, student, 13,500 into 16% plus 10.8. We round down means to nearest whole number, that will be 10%, student. It will not be 11. Round down means always we need to round down to the nearest whole number, not round up. If we round to 11, it will be round up. So 13,500 into 26%, and maximum is 37. It is not exceeding. So 13,500 into 26%, it is 3,510. Now coming to fuel benefit, it is on the base of 27,800 into 26%, appropriate percentage. So this will be 7,228. Students, if the employee is using the employer is providing the car and also paying the private fuel, if it is for business, then no. If it is for private use, and he reimbursed, then no benefit. If the employer pays and the employee will not refund, if they not refund, and if they do not refund if they refund partial amount, then the fuel benefit will be calculated on the whole amount, that is 27,800. I hope this point all of you remember. We have calculated under the fuel benefit. We have already seen, if motor fuel is provided by the employer, is used for business purpose, no taxable benefit. If the motor fuel is provided for private use and for business use, and we pay the private use, then no tax. If we are provided with the benefit, students, if we are provided with the private and business fuel, and we pay the partial amount, then the benefit will be calculated using the formula, that is 27,800 into the appropriate percentage. And this we will not reduce from any this will not be reduced by the contribution paid by the employee, any partial amount. This is only one area. Please do remember the employment benefit chapter. This fuel benefit is only the one area where the contribution paid by the employee will not be deductible. It will consider the whole amount. So our total taxable benefit will be, students, 3,150 plus 7,288 is 10,738. Now we need to pay the class 1 AM, and students, the class 1A NIC will be at a class 1A NIC will be at a flat rate of 13.8%. So class 1A NIC 10,738 into 13.8%. So this will be, students, 1,482. I hope by solving this question we are clear. If a person is self-employed and in his company he is having an employee, then he needs to account for all the NICs, and employment allowance can only be claimed for class 1 NIC, not class 1A. I hope this is clear. So students, in our today's session we have completed the NIC chapter. If you have any doubt, please do message in the WhatsApp group so that your doubt get clear. I hope today's session was very interesting and each and every topic was good to go. So have a good day. Goodbye. Thank you, students.